Hey guys, so I have been wondering from a really long time that why do Indian authors don't write YA novels as much Americans do, because I have read a bunch of American YA novels and I have loved them, and there are also movie adaptations of those books, but we don't really find YA novels in India written by Indian authors. And I came up with some reasons or some points that might as well explain this thing or explain this structure of Indian books, I guess. So yeah, let's get into this discussion without any further delay. So the first and the most important point is that Indians don't understand teenage or teenagers. Like, there is absolutely no acceptance of this fact that teenage is in fact a very difficult time for a kid. We are just not aware of the fact that teenage is a very difficult phase of a person's life, and in that time there are a lot of changes that is happening, and there are a lot of complexities that arise in a person's mind and just in general, and we just don't accept that. But in America, they are really open to this idea of understanding that a teenager has their own issues and that teenage is not an easy time for someone. So I guess this is one of the main reasons why there are not many Indian YA novels, because, well, we are not really accepting of this fact that teenagers are different and that teenagers have a difficult time coping with everything, all the changes that is going on inside their head and physically as well. Also, the fact that we just do not accept it makes everything so much more difficult for them. The next point is no personal space or privacy. Now in India, we don't have any personal space or privacy at all. We don't even understand the whole concept of privacy. We think that if a person wants privacy, they are doing something wrong, or they are indulging into some antisocial activities. It's very rare that we see that a teenager is given his or her personal room. They usually have to share it with their siblings if there are any, or we just don't see that they have this personal space anywhere. Like, they cannot even close their door and be with themselves. It's not just about being alone, it's about having a space for yourself where you can completely shut everything else and think in a way where you are just free. But in American novels, we see that they have their own personal space, they have their own room, they can shut the door. So if you want to write a YA novel in an Indian setting, it becomes very difficult because you cannot give your character a personal space, right? Because in India, you do not do that. And if you give your character personal space or privacy, then it's not relatable anymore. That's why Indian authors don't write as many YA novels. The next point is sanskar. The major difference that we have in our cultures that will totally reflect in our books is sanskar. I have read quite a bunch of American YA novels, and I've seen that those kids have a lot of arrogance in them. They are very rude towards their parents, and they are very cold as well. Like, they will not talk to their parents at all, and they are just very drifted from their parents, and they just don't want to understand that their parents are also trying to understand them. And I think they should be really grateful for that their parents are trying to understand them, whereas this doesn't happen in India. Like, in India, we are not allowed to behave like that with our parents, and I think that is a great thing. Obviously, you shouldn't be mean towards your parents, because your parents are human beings as well, and they are allowed to make mistakes, they are allowed to be at fault as well. The next point is divorce rate. Now, the divorce rate of America is much higher than India's, and I'm not trying to say that Indian marriages are great or they are amazing. It's just that Indians do not tend to get divorced that easily. They try to be together for the longest of time for their kids and children. So the American YA novels that I've read, I have found that most of the protagonists' issues and complexities arise from their parents' divorce. Now, they do not understand what to do and where to go. They don't know which parent is at fault and which parent is not, and this actually affects them a lot. And I think that that's why they have more YA novels, because even the authors have went through a rough phase in their life, and those authors try to write it out. And like, in India, that doesn't really happen that much. In India, we don't see our parents getting divorced even if they are not happy together. So we don't go through that phase of splitting or like trying to divide ourselves into two halves. So the next point is acceptance of mental illness, which is really low in India. In India, parents don't really accept this fact that teenage is the time when a person tend towards getting mentally ill, because a lot of different things are going on inside their mind, and depression and anxiety is something that is very very common in teenagers. But in India we don't really understand this. So in India there are two extremes: either you are normal or you are crazy, and there's just nothing in between. And that's why kids in India suffer a lot, because they cannot really share this fact. But the scenario is completely different in America and Western countries. They understand that mental illness is a very normal and common illness, and it has to be cured, it has to be treated. And therapy is something that is available to them everywhere, even in schools. Whereas in India, we don't really have as many therapists and counselors around us, so we don't really know what to do. And that's why I think we don't have as many YA novels that discusses this thing. The next point is difference in our school culture. Now, our culture in school is completely different. Theirs is very cool, ours is not. Ours is very strict, and it's all about discipline and being uptight and upright and all of that stuff. Whereas American school culture is very different. They're allowed to be themselves. There's not as much strictness and discipline as ours have. But I think the most important part is bullying. I think bullying is not that common in Indian setting as much as it is in America, because I've read a lot of books where bullying is one of the major parts of a teenager's issues and inferiorities. But in India we are not seeing as much bullying, which is a very great thing, because the students don't get a lot of freedom. Like, there is always a lot of invigilation on them, and teachers or prefects are always hounding, and so bullying is there, but it is really not as serious as it is in an American setting. So in India it doesn't get as difficult or as threatening for a teenager. So that's why also we don't get as many books about this issue in an Indian setting as we can see in an American setting. The next point is dating is a strict no-no. In India we don't talk about teenagers dating each other, because, well, we are a country where we don't date, we just directly get married. To write a YA novel that is about teenagers, I think attraction, infatuation and love is an important part of that phase, because in that phase you just have so many things going on in your head. Your emotions are on its zenith, and so it's an important part. And in America we see that teenagers date each other and they go out, they are by themselves, they spend a lot of time together. But in India we don't see that. And in India, whatever little we see about teenagers dating each other, it's on the episode of Gumrah, I guess, because that's what happens in India. We don't really get YA novels, we get YA crime fiction, I guess. In India it doesn't matter if you're 16 or 26 or 36, you're not allowed to date, you're just allowed to get married, I guess. So that is one reason that we don't have as many YA novels in India. The next point is that Indian teenagers don't have any time for anything, because all these teenagers are always busy in preparing for 10th ka board and 12th ka board, so they don't have any time. Whatever little time they have after school, they completely devote it towards tuitions and then studying and mugging up all of that stuff. That's why we don't even have as many books about these people, because, well, these people don't even have any time to have stories. The next point might as well sound a little shallow, but it is true that driving is a luxury and it is not for teenagers. Now the point is, if we see books like Perks of Being a Wallflower, which is like one of the best YA novels ever, there is this scene when Sam, Patrick and Charlie are together in their car and there's music and they are enjoying themselves, their infinite moment. That moment is so precious, and we cannot really have something like that. Such experiences are not meant to be for teenagers in India, because teenagers don't get any of such facilities. We don't get to have adventures, we don't get to have new experiences. We are really closely introspected all the time, we are always hounded, so we don't really get to experience anything new. We don't get to be alone with our friends anywhere, not in night. So our life is very different and it reflects in our books as well, and so we don't have as many YA novels again. So guys, I think these were all the points that I came up with about why Indian YA novels can never be like American YA novels, and why we can never have as many YA novels as Americans have. It's because there's a lot of difference between our culture, and our culture is not that accepting of young adult fiction or literature. Also, I didn't mean to offend anybody, not even Americans, not even Indians. It's just that our culture is very different. Alright guys, that was all for today's video. I hope that you liked it. If you did, then do not forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified every time I upload a new video, since I post new videos every week. And I'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.